Part 70. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Dalby in the World. Chapter 691. Chapter 691 Punishing the Culprit 3. Tang Xingla couldn't figure out why Lu Rong was suddenly targeted, and neither could the Tang family. From the perspective of the Tang family, the matter of settling accounts with Murong 11 naturally fell on Tang Yuge. After all, she was Tang Yuge's friend. Due to Murong 11's status as the vice president of the Emgrand group, they could not offend her head-on. Even if they felt unhappy, they still suppressed the anger in their hearts and let Tang Yuge handle it on his own. Unexpectedly, Tang Yuge would point the finger at Lu Rong at this moment. Tang Yuge laughed coldly, keeping the gun in his hand pointed at Lu Rong. The person who killed the child in Chiener's belly was none other than Lu Rong, a vicious woman. Tang Yuge's words made Grandma Tang's face darken. She had already guessed something before, but she didn't expect it to be like this. Several other people were even more shocked, thinking how could it be Lu Rong? Tang Yuge laughed cruelly. Lu Rong, do you think that by imposing the crime on Xiao 11, I can't see that it was you who did it? I know very well what kind of person Xiao 11 is, and I would never do such a vicious thing anyway. And you have long been unhappy with Chiener and have repeatedly tried to deal with her. The last time she fell down the stairs was your fault. You didn't harm Chiener, but you did harm to your own daughter. This time, the vicious thing happened. Put the blame on Xiao 11. You are talking nonsense. Do you have evidence to prove that I did it? We have evidence to prove that Murong 11 did it, Lu Rong summoned up the courage to say. Her hands and feet were very clean, leaving no clues. She didn't believe that Tang Yuge could produce evidence at all. In my eyes, Tang Yuge, there is no need for evidence. As long as it is you, you must pay the price. He didn't care about the evidence, he was almost 100% sure it was her. Coupled with some detailed analysis of the day and criminal psychology speculation, it has been determined that Lu Rong is undoubtedly the case. As long as he was sure it was Lu Rong, he didn't care what the evidence was. You're rebelling. It's too arrogant. Do you think that my father is dead? Ranjit is my wife and your stepmother. Based on your judgment, you have to take the blame for your stepmother? It's ridiculous. After hearing what Tang Yuge said, Tang Wentao became even more angry. I can't wait to rush over and give this traitor a few slaps. This guy dares to point a gun at me, and he insists on killing his wife. Tang Yuge narrowed his eyes dangerously. Dad, don't forget that I have a PhD in psychology. Criminal psychology and criminal reasoning are the most basic. I don't need evidence, because my words are evidence. As Tang Yuge said, few things can be hidden from him, and few mistakes can be made by him. Normally, he would never lose in a quarrel with Tang Wentao. Everyone present knew how high Tang Yuge's IQ was. Sometimes people from the Tang family can't find a certain item, and they just tell Tang Yuge some clues, and he can always find something in a short time. His knowledge of psychology is so pure that no one can even lie to him because he can always judge the truth and never fails. As Tang Yuge said, unless he meant it, once he said it, it must be true. He said that Lu Rong was the murderer, which was almost equivalent to evidence. He has the capital to be arrogant. Everyone looked at Lu Rong in a different way. Although Tang Wentao didn't want to believe it, he also knew his son. Is it really wrong? The looks in everyone's eyes made Lu Rong panic. In order to get rid of suspicion, she remained firm and even lied to herself and others. He's talking nonsense. End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Dalby in the World. Chapter 692. Chapter 692 Punishing the Culprit 4. He's talking nonsense. He has nowhere to vent. He was unhappy with me before, so he forced it on me when something happened this time. Is what he said the truth? He also lies sometimes. Auntie, there is no reason for the eldest brother to lie. After all, this is about the eldest sister-in-law and the unborn child. Tang Feishan defended Tang Yuj. What is no reason? He has always been unhappy with me. He has always treated me as nothing in this family. He has always been worried about me causing his mother to give birth prematurely, which caused his mother to die early, which led him to return to the Tang family and have another child. He also can't see his mother. He hates me from the bottom of his heart and wants to drive me away. This time he found a reason to frame me and get rid of me. He has selfish motives. Lu Rong pretended to be heartbroken and aggrieved, shedding painful tears, and kept showing aggrieved eyes to Tang Wentao. However, Tang Wentao just did this, completely believing that his son had selfish motives and had wronged Lu Rong. Lu Rong has always given people the impression of being gentle and virtuous, a good wife and loving mother, and she has been pretending to be so for 20 years. Tang Yuz's one-sided words may make them suspicious, but they cannot completely believe her. Only Grandma Tang, who hates Lu Rong, firmly believes in her grandson's words, because in her eyes, Lu Rong is a vicious woman who has done all the vicious things to achieve her goals. Her wise eyes have always seen clearly for so many years, and it is only after so many years that she has always disliked Lu Rong. But this woman pretended to be very successful and deceived everyone, including her son Tang Wentao. Tang Yuj, put down the gun in your hands. Have you made enough trouble today? I won't believe it if you throw dirty water on Ranjit again. Tang Wentao defended his wife and took a few steps back, looking at the gun in his son's hand warily. This kid, do you really want to see blood today? Tang Wentao didn't expect his son to be so scary. He usually looked like he was doing nothing. Although he had a smart head, he had nothing to do all day long and just knew how to read. She would usually make him feel unhappy, and she was very talkative. She couldn't win an argument with him every time, and would attack him with a bunch of words, leaving him unable to resist. It has only reached this point, and today I have a new understanding of my son. He was so angry that he was so crazy and frightening that even he, a man accustomed to strong winds and waves, was afraid that the gun in his hand would go off. He could feel that his son really wanted to kill Lu Rong. As a husband, he could not retreat and let his son bear the crime of killing his stepmother. This kind of tragedy would never be allowed to happen. Dad, the gun in my hand doesn't blink. If I accidentally hurt you, I don't care. Tang Yuz's eyes became more and more terrifying, and his eyes were narrowed and flashing with terror. Tang Xingai judged that his eldest brother was serious, so he hid aside in fear and wanted to protect his mother. What to do? Is the eldest brother really going to kill his mother? Tang Xinglu was trembling all over. She threw herself at Tang Yuz's feet, hugged Tang Yuz's thighs with both hands, and began to cry and beg for Tang Yuz. Brother, don't do this. Don't kill my mother. She is my biological mother. Tang Xinglu cried. The possibility of losing her mother made her extremely courageous. But Tang Yuz was so determined that he couldn't even hear Tang Xinglu's cries. Brother, just don't beat him to death, Tang Feishan said coldly. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 693. Chapter 693, Punishing the Culprit 5. Grandma Tang wanted to comfort and persuade. As the wisest and most insightful person in the entire Tang family, she just nodded in agreement. As long as no one was killed, she would let her grandson do whatever he wanted. If I don't let Xiao Yu vent her anger today, I'm afraid she won't be kind. Old man, if you don't back away, I'll beat you too. Tang Yuj has gone crazy a long time ago. Thinking that he may never see Qian Yuman again in this life, all his sense has left home. The hesitation, anger, melancholy, and confusion in my heart appeared at the same time. His he realized that he had fallen deeply in love with her. He finally recognized his heart, but he could no longer see her. All of a sudden, he lost 3 relatives, his favorite woman, and 2 unborn babies. They were so looking forward to their arrival. The scene when they just knew they were going to be fathers is still vivid in their minds. But all this happiness was ruined by Lu Rong and the others. His Qian's whereabouts are still unknown, and he is afraid that his fate is in danger. Why? Why did God treat him like this? If he had known that such a day would come, he would rather not have appeared by her side. Maybe she would still be alive and well now. If he knew that one day he would be deeply in love with her and fall deeply in love with her, he would never escape from the fact that he had been attracted to her for a long time. Thanks to his PhD in psychology, he can't even see through his own true feelings. What kind of psychology did he study? Even at the beginning, Lu Rong didn't notice that he wanted to hurt the mother and son. He still relied on his intelligence and his eyes that could see into other people's hearts. He was angry at Lu Rong, mostly to vent his own torture. I'm angry at myself for not realizing it later, angry at myself for not knowing how to cherish it. I don't know how to cherish it until I lose it. Regret. Tang Yuge had already pulled the trigger and would fire at any time. Lu Rong, who was hiding behind Tang Wentao, was trembling with fear. Will she really be killed by Tang Yuge? She didn't expect that Tang Yuge would become so crazy and terrifying. Tang Yuge said cruel words and even pulled the trigger. Tang Wentao still stood in front of Lu Rong and refused to back down. Tang Xinglu still hugged Tang Yuge's thigh and cried and begged. The scene was at a deadlock for a while. Tang Yuge's lips curved into an evil smile, his eyes filled with murderous aura, and he shot at Lu Rong without hesitation. It's just that the shot missed a little, and didn't hit anyone. Instead, it hit a valuable vase not far away. The sound of the explosion made Lu Rong let go of Tang Wentao in fear, and quickly backed away with her hands clasped behind her ears. At this moment, Tang Yuge turned his hands slightly and fired 2 shots in succession. Lu Rong raised her head in horror and saw Tang Yuge shooting at her again, with a smile in his eyes and an evil smile on his lips that was so terrifying, even more terrifying than the devil from hell. And he pointed the gun in his hand at her and fired 2 more shots. At that moment, she saw the god of death waving to her, and death was only half a step away from her. Not long after, pain instantly spread throughout her body. The gun in Tang Yuge's hand accurately hit Lu Rong's body. She could even hear the sound of bullets hitting her flesh. Pain spread all over her body quickly, her body instantly tensed up, and blood continued to flow from the bullet holes in her body. She looked at Tang Yuge in disbelief. She didn't expect Tang Yuge to actually shoot and kill her. She slowly looked down at the 2 skeletons on her body, unable to even cry out in pain. Beat this to death. Recommended vote. Monthly ticket. Moi. Give Mr. Tang a thumbs up for his handsomeness. La la la. Come on. Come harder. End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 694. Chapter 694 I love you, please come back 1. The moment Tang Yuge's bullet hit Lu Rong, all sounds were silenced, even the sound of breathing disappeared. Everyone looked at Tang Yuge and Lu Rong in disbelief. Tang Wentao directly reached out and hugged his wife's limp body. Tang Xingai was dumbfounded on the spot, and Tang Xingla crawled towards her mother crying. Tang Feishan and Grandma Tang had calm expressions and did not react at all to what their elder brother did. Their eyes showed that they wanted to applaud and applaud. Tang Yuge sneered, put away his pistol, and turned away without hesitation. This farce has just begun, not the end. Qian's tragedy must be repaid 1,000 times 100 times. It's just a sweetener now, and the murderer's punishment will be faced later, and it will only get worse. Tang Wentao hugged Lu Rong and shouted for an ambulance without hesitation. He was still in the mood to settle accounts with Tanyuj and anxiously sent his wife to the hospital. Tanyuj's 3 bullets did not hit Lurong's vital part. One of them hit her liver. It is not sure whether it will kill Tanyuj, but it can take away half of her life. There is also a bullet that hit her thigh. As for the sequelae of this shot, he couldn't say. He even hoped that Lurong would not die, because death was the best escape for her. There would be many ways to get revenge in the future, and he wanted to execute them on her one by one. Death was the best escape for her. Tanyuj was furious when he returned to the Tang family. He looked back at the Tang family where he had lived for more than 10 years, with a sad smile on his lips. Jian'er, I should have left this home long ago. This home makes me sick. I shouldn't have brought you back. I shouldn't have returned to China. I should have stayed in San Francisco in the first place. I will accompany you as you prepare for the job of translator. By your side. If I had known that so many things would happen after I returned to China, I would not have come back even if I was forced to come back. I'm sorry to have to face the dirty Tang family. I should have left this home a few years ago. I should not have even returned to the Tang family back then, or should have stayed with you without having to be separated for 11 years. Tanyuj rarely did anything he regretted in his life, but in the past few days, countless regrets were swirling in his heart. How he wished it was all a dream. What happened in the past few days was so sad that it made his heart constantly shed tears. Tanyuj continued to drink to numb himself in the next few days. He drank at home and drank the wine that Jian Yuman had given him as a treasure. Honey, look, I'm going to drink up all this wine and waste it. Aren't you angry? Come out and stop me when you're angry. Tanyuj took a big gulp of red wine worth hundreds of thousands, murmuring as he drank, his face 2 lines of clear tears flowed. Honey, look, I like eating durian now, do you want to eat it with me? Tanyuj picked up the smelly durian and ate it in big gulps. It was clear that eating it before would cause evil, and it was clear that I felt dizzy when I smelled it before, but now I can eat it one bite after another. Tanyuj didn't dare to enter the room specially prepared for the little babies. Now they are vacant and their little owners will never move in again. Jian'er, I love you, please come back, okay? Do you know how cruel it is for you to leave? Why can't you think about it? Why should you leave me? Why should you use such cruel means to make him realize that he falls in love with her? Had he known that the price would be so high, he should not have resisted. End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 695. Chapter 695 I love you, please come back too. He never knew that regret was so painful. Even when he treated the Wang family that way, he never regretted it. I didn't expect that the taste of regret today would be so heartbreaking. Why bother to spend such a huge price to wake him up? He only wants Jian'er and he doesn't want anything else. If possible, he would trade everything for Jian'er's company. If I could hold her in my arms again, I would love her, pamper her, and not let her feel any grievance. Let him go east and never west, treat her like an ancestor, and care for her with all his love. Even the stars in the sky are willing to fish them down for her and give them away to her, as long as she is willing to come back to him. Such extravagant hopes kept popping up in his heart, but God had no regret medicine. No matter how many thoughts he had, they would turn into pain and torture, torturing him deeply. Other than numbing himself with alcohol, he didn't know how to reduce the pain in his heart, even just a little bit. When Ji-fan came, he saw Tanyuj's strange behavior. Eating durian in one mouthful and drinking wine in one mouthful, the picture is so beautiful. Oh, little Jej, are you crazy? Ji-fan covered his nose, passed through various wine bottles, and finally came to Tanyuj. Looking at his strange behavior, most of the durian had gone into his stomach. The red wine he had tried to steal countless times actually took a big sip in one go. Feeling distressed, he immediately snatched it from his hand. "Oh my God! Isn't this the Cheval Blanc manor that I had to spend 1 million to buy from you? You are so inhumane. This is such a waste. You are a blasphemy to those of us who love wine. It hurts. Why are there such wasteful people? If you want to get drunk, you can drink cheap ones, but what about drinking such expensive ones?" Ji-fan looked like he had eaten shit. Holding the half-empty bottle of red wine, he spontaneously found the red wine glass and poured himself a drink. It must not be wasted. When he came back after drinking wine, he saw Tanyuj opening another bottle of expensive red wine. He was so frightened that he ran over quickly. As a result, he stepped on the red wine bottle and fell towards Tanyuj. Tanyuj saw the shadow coming down, raised his head in confusion, and saw a somewhat distorted face magnified in front of him, and then, at zero distance. Tanyuj and Ji-fan's eyes widened at the same time, feeling the softness on their lips. Especially Ji-fan could smell the sweet smell of durian, a smell they would never forget. Immediately afterwards, the wine in Ji-fan's cup poured onto his head. The fall was so graceful that the wine only spilled on him. In an instant, he felt the aroma of red wine and the stench of durian, as well as the taste of the touch between men. Ji-fan screamed and jumped up, hugging himself and wailing in grief. "My first kiss. My first kiss is gone, you have to be responsible for me." Ji-fan hugged himself exaggeratedly, looking like he was bullied by Tanyuj. Tanyuj frowned, wiped his mouth with a disgusted face, and ate the durian unhurriedly, as if nothing happened just now. You, woo-hoo-hoo. Ji-fan covered his face and hid in the corner drawing circles. It's okay, just pretend that you were forcefully kissed by a pig just now, woo-woo-woo. If my mother knows that I was kissed by a man today, will she be sad and cry?" Ji-fan's innocence that he maintained for more than 20 years was gone. These days are worrying. It's okay, let's have some fun. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Dalby in the World. Chapter 696. Chapter 696. I love you, please come back. 3. It's okay, just pretend that you were forcefully kissed by a pig just now, woo woo woo. If my mother knows that I was kissed by a man today, will she be sad and cry? Ji-fan's innocence that he maintained for more than 20 years was gone. When Ji-fan was feeling sorry for himself, Tanyuj took another bottle of expensive whiskey and was about to open it to drink. When Ji-fan noticed it, he immediately pounced on him, snatched the wine away from him, and returned the pile of whiskey beside him. All the remaining wine was moved away, and she cried while holding the wine. "Little cuties, I failed to protect you, so you were almost ruined." At this moment, Tanyuj was still very awake, frowning displeased and glaring at Ji-fan angrily. "Have you had enough trouble? You kissed me forcefully and robbed me of my wine. How hungry are you to go out and look for women? Don't look for presents in front of me." Tanyuj had a stinky face while eating durian with a mouthful of there was a constant stench, and Ji-fan took a step back unconsciously. "Who forcibly kissed you? And I don't think you should talk to me right now. The smell of your words is worse than a 10,000-year-old latrine." When I mentioned this, I thought of accidentally falling into Tanyuj's arms and touching his mouth. Picture together. Ruined. He was never the same person again, he had been kissed by a man. Tanyuj had a dark face and rolled his eyes at Ji-fan. However, being teased by Ji-fan in this way, the pain in his heart disappeared a little, but once he calmed down, the pain appeared in his heart again. "If you have anything to do with me, don't make me drink." Ji-fan heard this and said sadly. "Leave them alone, baby wine, don't be spoiled." "Master, I have money, Do you care about it? Give it back to me quickly, Tanyuj roared angrily. He felt like he was getting drunk. When he was drunk, he didn't know anything, and he wouldn't be in so much pain. Ji-fan pouted, sighed helplessly, moved the wine to a place, and walked through various wine bottles. Why are you more haggard than Xiao Lulu? Lan Tianlu and Xiao Ling had a bad temper some time ago, and Xiao Ling ran away. Lan Tianlu was so stupid that he didn't know that he had fallen in love with Xiao Ling, and he only recognized himself after being scolded by him. Tanyuj was tragic. Although he didn't need to be scolded to wake her up, he found out how his wife committed suicide. Qian Yuman doesn't know how she is doing now, but the situation is definitely not good. We have been searching for so many days and still haven't found anyone. Everyone knows that the danger is high. Tanyuj was silent. He covered his face with his hands and took a deep breath. He felt that even breathing was painful, like a knife cutting him. Can you help me with what I asked you to do? Ji-fan smiled brightly and stretched out his hand to pat his chest several times. Don't worry when I do things. Although I'm not as cruel as you, it's enough to torture them. Thank you. Please help me do the follow-up slowly. I don't have the time to do this now, Tanyuj thanked him. When I thought of the names of those two people, my teeth started to itch. It was all because of Lu Rong and Qi Yuking that Jianer had such a result. No matter whether Jianer is found in the future or not, they will have to pay the price for what they have done. Especially the Qi family. Under the pressure of the Tang dynasty group in the past few days, the Qi family, which needed a large amount of funds, was in trouble because Tanyuj asked Ji-fan. Ji-fan, as the CEO of one of the world's leading banks, said that no bank in the world would dare to borrow Kai's loan. End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 697. Chapter 697 Bitch Lu is missing one. Without this large loan, it would be difficult for the Qi family's company to sustain itself. At best, it would just be able to survive without accomplishing anything. These revenges are not enough for him. The collapse of the Qi family only caused the collapse of Qi Yuking's backstage. She still has a lot of pride. Qian Yuman once mentioned to Tanyuj about Qi Yuking and her vows. Those vicious vows, Qi Yuking may have said casually at the beginning, and these vicious consequences would not easily occur. Tanyuj now wants to use artificial means to make those vows come true, letting her know the horror of the vows and how painful the future will be. So Tanyuj asked Ji-fan to arrange for several men to take turns deceiving Qi Yuking's feelings, making her infamous and unable to hold her head high when she went out. She pretended to be innocent and cute in front of him, but her heart was so vicious. I had always thought that although she was different on the surface, her heart was not that vicious, but I didn't want her to join forces with Lu Rong and cause Jianer to suffer such a big loss. This revenge must be avenged by him. This matter has been slowly underway, and I believe there will be good news waiting for him soon. After Ji-fan arrived, several of Tanyuj's good brothers also arrived. The three of them carried Tanyuj out to prevent him from continuing to be decadent at home. Tanyuj always looked hopeless, and they were a little worried that he would lose his mind and follow Qian Yuman. So several people took turns taking him around to play, and seeing different people regain their mood, he had a miserable face and was lifeless. No, it was Lan Tianlu who took Tanyuj to dinner today. Both of them had serious faces. It's just that Lan Tianlu is indifferent and expressionless, while Tanyuj is lifeless, and Lan Tianlu himself doesn't talk much. You don't have any potential as a man, for a woman to behave like this after eating for 20 minutes, Tanyuj didn't even take a few bites, and Lan Tianlu couldn't bear it before he spoke. Tanyuj raised his head and stared at Lan Tianlu and said sadly. When you experience the pain of losing the woman you love, you will understand. Lan Tianlu raised his eyes and glared at him. His feathers were always shining on him like a little sun. Tang Yuj looked at the person opposite with his eyes softening and showing envy. Among the three of them, Lan Tianlu has the smoothest and sweetest relationship. Even if you tell him, you won't understand how heartbroken he is. While the two of them were eating, a man barged in. It was Tang Wentao. Tang Yuj, you bastard, where have you done wrong? When Tang Wentao saw his son, he cursed him. He was really angry. Tang Yuj returned home a few days ago and shot Lu Rong to kill her. He finally managed to Lu Rong back from death. This morning, she disappeared from the hospital without any direction. After his wife disappeared, he left many people looking for her but could not find her. Thinking again that this traitor firmly believed that Lu Rong was the murderer of Qian Yuman, he excitedly came to Tang Yuj to settle the score. Tang Yuj's lifeless face finally showed a smile, and his appetite recovered a little, and he ate deliciously in front of Tang Wentao. None of my business. A simple sentence, endless ridicule, and a complete rejection of the matter. It's none of your business. Whose business is it? You're a traitor. Don't go too far after all, she's still your little mother. End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 698. Chapter 698. Bitch Lu is missing too. It's none of your business, but whose business is it? You're a traitor, don't go too far. After all, she's still your little mother. Tang Wentao was furious at the side, anxiously trying to find out Lu Rong's whereabouts from Tang Yuj. Tang Yuj became calmer and calmer, and his appetite got better and better. Do you think she would still be alive if I took her away, let alone taking her away? He had never done anything like killing Lu Rong. You, Tang Wentao glanced at Lan Tianlu, feeling furious in his heart. He also estimated that Lan Tianlu, the president of Lan Group, was here, so he couldn't slap this brat, and he had to take some face into account. Damn old man, it's not like you don't know that I'm an idle young man. How can I take away Lu Rong and hide it from you? Maybe Lu Rong's concubine took her away. Don't pour the dirty water into the house. Splash it all over me, Tang Yuj laughed, not giving any face at all. Ever since Jian Yuman's accident, Tang Wentao has been defending Lu Rong. Tang Wentao's father, who has no importance in his heart, has become a thing of the past. He would never go back to the Tang family. If he wasn't afraid that his grandma would be sad, he would even want to sever the father-son relationship with him. Tang Wentao was so angry that Tang Yuj was speechless. In Tang Wentao's eyes, this son has nothing to do all day long and does not do anything serious. Without Grandma Tang as a pillar of support, how could he be free and easy? He has always been puzzled as to why Tang Yuj, his son, has several brothers with good backgrounds. In front of him were Lan Tianlu, Ji Fan, who often came to the Tang family, Chang Junyi, who sold arms, and Murong Ye, the president of the Emgrand Group. Everyone's background is better than that of the Tang dynasty family. With these good brothers here, it won't be a matter of minutes to get their help. Except he couldn't think of anyone who wanted to take his wife away. Mr. Tang, can you leave now that you've finished speaking? You're disturbing my enjoyment of eating. Lan Tianlu glanced at Tang Wentao with a cold look, which conveyed all the dissatisfaction in his heart. Tang Wentao is still a little worried. The Lan Group owned by Lan Tianlu is the richest man in Asia and the second largest group in the world. His grandmother is also the queen of a wealthy country. Lan Tianlu is the hardest to offend among Nazai's friends. Lan Tianlu was indignant when he saw him. He glared at his son and left angrily. Before leaving, he did not forget to leave one sentence. If you let me know that you took Renji away, I will sever the father-son relationship with you. As long as Grandma agrees, I can do it at any time. Tang Yuj added that it didn't matter at all. Tang Wentao became even more angry when he heard this. How could this son do this? When he found it back then, he couldn't believe it was his son unless all the evidence proved it was his son. It's not like him, nor like his deceased wife, I really don't know who he is like. After Tang Wentao left, Tang Yuj showed a cheerful smile. Being able to see Tang Wentao feeling aggrieved made him feel better. What keeps him going now is to torture those murderers. During this period, he worked hard to restore himself, because he knew that Jian'er was still waiting for him, and when the time came, he would let her see how he took revenge on Lu Rong and Qi Yuqing. If she comes back and sees that Lu Rong and Qi Yuqing are both well, she will definitely blame him. So these days, he came up with a bunch of ways to torture Lu Rong and Qi Yuqing. Lu Rong's disappearance was naturally his fault. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Daobi in the World. Chapter 699. Chapter 699 Bitch Lu is missing 3. So these days, he came up with a bunch of ways to torture Lu Rong and Qi Yuqing. And Lu Rong's disappearance was his fault. Lu Rong, the cause of all these things. If he had known that Lu Rong would hurt Jian'er back then, he would never have let Lu Rong live in the Tang family for one more day. Just like now, he unknowingly took Lu Rong out of the Tang family. Xiao Tian, are you interested in going to see some fun with me? Tang Yuj took a few more bites, but had no appetite at all, like chewing wax. His appetite has been so bad these days. If his friends hadn't pulled him to force feed him, he might have starved to death. Lan Tianlu looked at his friend deeply and nodded, already guessing what he was going to do. The helicopter came over and directly picked up Tang Yuj and Lan Tianlu and took them to a deep mountain. After getting off the helicopter, Lan Tianlu looked around. This is a psychiatric hospital, and it is located deep in the mountains. It takes 3 or 4 hours to drive from here to a populated city. If it is a pedestrian walk, it may take a day and a night. This mental hospital is relatively low-key, but the treatment is pretty good. Although it is located deep in the mountains, there are still many patients. Usually more serious mental patients are admitted. It is better to say that it is a mental hospital than a place where patients are detained. As they walked along, they saw numerous doors, all of which were closed. Each door has a small window that can be seen from the outside. He can see countless patients doing many strange things and actions, obviously mentally disturbed. There will be several patients in some wards, and each patient has a world in his mind. They do strange things, and they can even chat with each other. It can be felt that they are seriously ill, and some of them are covered in wounds, all caused by their own abuse. The doctors here are also quite ruthless, and they use cruel methods to treat some patients who have gone crazy. There were a lot of beatings and scoldings, and electric shock batons were even used to stun patients who were too crazy, so no medication was needed. Lan Tianlu looked at these patients with a hint of smile in his eyes, and smiled and said to Tang Yuj who was walking beside him. It's quite innovative. Lan Tianlu's meaningful words brought a smile to Tang Yuj's face. These are nothing to him. Although the plot was his idea, he was not the one actually looking for this mental hospital. Tang Yuj took Lan Tianlu to a ward. The patient in the ward had her limbs clamped and many instruments inserted into her body, and her vital signs were being checked. If you look carefully, you can see that the person lying on the bed is not the person Tang Wentao has been looking for. At this moment, Lu Rong looked very haggard, her eyes were closed tightly, and her body was shaking. It could be guessed that she was awake. There were patients in the same condition around her, but they were missing many instruments and their hands were tied. They were awake and their bodies were normal. They were all struggling violently, trying to break free from the handcuffs in their hands. They are very crazy. They were so mad that they had to be with handcuffs. They were crazy, their wrists were red and bleeding from the struggle, but they didn't know the pain. And Lu Rong is one of them at this moment. The wound on her body has just stopped bleeding, so she cannot move violently. Recommended tickets, monthly tickets. Come, come, come. If you haven't joined the VIP group yet, you can add it. The group number will be pinned to the top of the comment area. End of this chapter. After the flash marriage, the character collapsed. Author, Dalby in the World. Chapter 700. Chapter 700 Imprisoned Qian 1. Lu Rong didn't know where she was, or how she got here. When she woke up, she found that the people around her were frantically trying to break free. Slowly, she found that the spirits of the people around her were somewhat different. Unusual. She would see some doctors coming in and out these days, but she couldn't understand what they were saying, and they couldn't understand what she said. If she wants to struggle, she will be treated like someone with mental problems around her. In the past few days, fear prevented her from having a good rest, and her inability to communicate normally also made her miserable. Where did she come? She wanted to go home. She didn't want to stay in this place. She felt that if she stayed in these places any longer, she would go crazy, completely crazy. Tang Yuj looked indifferently at Lu Rong, who was trembling slightly in the room, with a comfortable smile on his lips. Old Tang, your method of torturing people is quite novel. Tang Yuj raised his head with a little pride and said with a smile. Don't forget that I am studying psychology. The most painful thing that tortures people is not physical torture, but mental torture. He knows very well how to force a person to become an abnormal person. In a hospital full of lunatics, if a normal person enters and has no way to escape due to language barriers, she will be frightened. A normal person can be forced to become an abnormal person. Normal people learned a trick. Lan Tianlu had a faint smile in his eyes. He was relieved to see that his friend had regained some vitality. He only hoped that his friend could get over the pain of losing Qian Yuman as soon as possible. This is also the thing that everyone is most concerned about. A certain peninsula in country Z. A beautiful woman with a slightly protruding belly jumped out of a hidden place like a kitten, looking around to make sure there was no one there. She has an alluring face, and her every frown and smile can attract people's hearts. Her hair is slightly messy at the moment, but it has a different charm. The weather at the end of August is still a bit hot, and she doesn't wear much clothes. Only one small bag was crossed. Every time she took a step, she carefully looked around to see if anyone was paying attention to her. After making sure no one saw her, she stepped forward with her slender legs and walked behind a big tree, and unknowingly reached the wall. The woman raised her head in annoyance and looked at the wall, which was at least 2 meters high. Looking down at his belly again, he saw something in his hand. It is an iron hook with a big head, and the tail of the hook is a very thick rope. She looked around vigilantly to make sure no one had noticed her. She held the rope tied to the iron hook, quickly spun it in her hands, and then moved toward the 2-meter-high wall. The iron hook hooked the wall. She tried to pull it down a few times to make sure it was secure and would not fall off easily. She tied her body to her arms, grabbed the tree on the side with one hand, and slowly climbed up using the big tree and the rope, climbing up carefully. Sitting on the wall, her feet hanging on the side, hesitating about how to solve the problem, several voices suddenly came from behind her. The person speaking behind her spoke fluent French. He saw the beautiful women sitting on the wall, chattering in a panic below. "Miss, come down quickly, it's dangerous up there. Go and get the ladder quickly so that the lady can climb down slowly. Miss, please climb up the wall, how dangerous it is." End of this chapter.